Let me ask you something. Have you ever had a very unorthodox or messy creative idea that turned out to be super successful? Welcome to Legendary Mess. I am Martine, and welcome to this episode where we are going to keep it lighthearted this time. It's going to be fun, but I promise there's some lessons. First and foremost, hello, cousins. Favorite peace and blessings over your entire day and week. I missed you. Two, y'all know the rules. Okay, let's get this out of the way. Like, comment, share, subscribe. This YouTube channel, the links for Spotify. Okay, it's a legendary mess. We are a safe space where cousins, we give ourselves grace and we uplift, and everyone can feel safe enough to just vocalize and hear and this is a safe space. It's a community. We uplift each other here, and whatever mess we got going on, trust me, it's a safe space. We don't have the time or place to judge y'all or each other, which is why we give ourselves grace, a lot of grace. Also, find me on IG as iamraynemartine or the page of Legendary Mess. You can find me on TikTok, Rain Martine. You can find me on the Raggedy Facebook. Still very much a love-hate relationship. But you can find me on Facebook as Rain M. And yes, share this with others so whoever may not realize that I understand and I'm here with you guys. We are a community, it's a family, and that we give ourselves grace and we embrace the mess. Sorry guys, I'm running on like half and half energy. I apologize. But yes, this is a community, this is a family, everybody cousins up in here. And welcome, welcome. Come, be a part, vocalize. So let us get in and start with messy confessions. So this week, this messy confessions actually has to do with the podcast. Actually, this whole episode is about the podcast, but this particular messy confession is I almost thought about tapping into the hood half of me because thankfully, I'm super grateful and super thankful that God has done such an amazing job of working on me. He hasn't really took completely away all my essence, but he has definitely disciplined me and restructured a lot of me, and I'm super grateful for that. This week, I found some very not so great comments, and that hood half of me was ready to tap in and be like, let me tell you about this. But the very graceful, godly half of me stepped in and she won. Thank God. She won and I handled it with grace. I found myself in the light of some judgmental people who I knew for a fact didn't have enough maturity to actually watch the episode. They only saw the short and that's what they ran with. And they were like, judge your parent or whoever made you that way. I also could tell they were not Christians and they were not people who like had any type of dynamic or relationship with God. So I had to kind of be the vessel that I prayed for and redirect it with a lot of grace and a lot of just humbleness and godly Christ-like characteristics. I'm super grateful for that and I'm really thankful and I'm proud of me. But Hood half of Rain, which I like to call Hood Rat Helga, she was ready. She wanted to step in and be like, yeah, let's get him. I had to tell Hood Rat Helga to sit this one out. It wasn't that type of party. We don't do those. We don't play those reindeer type of activities and games. But I'm grateful that God has done such an amazing job and a great work. Shout out to Uncle Brian Courtney Wilson for that song, because it was on the playlist today and every day. But I was feeling it more and more today and when that occurred. But God has done such a great work with me that I honestly didn't even have the I didn't even feel the urge to be like, let's be done. It was just the thought of, what if Hood Rat Helga steps out for a second? And I was like, I don't think that's smart today, girl. Sit this one out, Buki. And she did, and she was okay. She wasn't mad. But yeah, that's my messy confessions. I was in the limelight of judgmental people. Thankfully, I know how to handle that, because if we're being honest, and transparent about this journey, my whole entire life has always been judged. So I'm very used to the scrutiny. I'm also very used to a certain level of ignorance. And I just want to tell those who are being very ignorant, I'm praying for you. I pray that you guys soften your hearts and actually use your God given common sense, to use your comprehension to actually watch the episodes before making um, any type of ridiculous judgment against not just me, but anybody on the internet. Um, so yeah, that's about it. I pray over you guys. Bless y'all. Wholeheartedly bless y'all. Anywho, let's jump into this episode because I'm actually excited. I get to kind of tell the start of a legendary mess a little bit. And I'm going to start it off with first and foremost, it wasn't originally that. But yeah, so the question is, have you ever had a messy, unorthodox, creative idea that started kind of like a mishap but became really successful? And honestly, that's what happened with this. So, story time, children, gather around the campfire. Come close, gather around, children. A legendary mess originally was not a legendary mess. And I'm gonna make sure I bullet pointed. I'm not gonna drag this out. A legendary mess was initially birthed a lot of years ago, and I just didn't know it. Not even gonna lie to y'all. I just didn't know it. Um, by the way, if you see me looking in the corners, I literally just moved and I'm trying to get used to the house and me being in it right now without my kids. I'm just going through it. I'm also having a bit of an OCD moment because I left my trash in a space that's bugging me out. So every time I move a certain way, kind of like my kitchen light reflects off of it and it's tripping me out. But back to the story time, children. Gather around the campfire. Come close. Come close, children and cousins and family. Um, so yes, a legendary mess originally was not that. Shout out to my best friend Melina. That's my syphil. And anybody say something crazy, like the Mufasa song, but I always wanted the brother. Yeah, we're each other like that, for each other. So shout out to her because she played such a vital role. A lot of years ago, fun fact, well, I still do sing. I songwrite, I sing, I play instruments. Originally, my best friend Melina, who caught wind of this, wanted me to just keep singing, and there were certain obstacles that I kept facing that I knew wholeheartedly God was like, this is not the way that I want you to go. After a while, I kind of just had to surrender it. I stopped, excessively and insistently praying over it, because it wasn't even that it was met with a certain level of resistance. It was met with obstacles that were at some point politics and dangerous. So I had to just surrender it. Did I feel heartbroken about it? Yes, I did. Um, I did feel a little bit heartbroken. But I knew for so much of my life that God always wanted me to use my voice. And I know that sounds odd. Like, how do you know God wants you to use your voice? Because one, I've lived 10 billion lives. I have to like make sure I'm enunciating because I've been told I sound like I'm always saying the wrong words. I took that as constructive criticism and not something like that was like meant to hurt me. So I always keep it in mind. But I've lived a million billion lives and in all my 35 years. It's amazing and ridiculous all in one, which also makes me ta-da, legendary mess. Welcome, children. Um, with that, I just knew God had specifically wanted me to use my voice because at a young age I knew how powerful words could be. Now, if you fast forward to my teenage years, oh trust me, I knew how powerful my words could be because if you used to piss me off, I used to make sure you would go home and at least consider some real not some not so great things. I've been delivered and I've repented for that. And I'm very grateful that God has his hand in the details of my life the way that he does. So I knew he wanted me to use my voice. I just didn't know how. I kept thinking, well, singing's not going to work. And how am I supposed to use my voice? Like, this don't make no sense. So fast forward a lot of years later, after surrendering that, and I was still being encouraged. I still am often encouraged to like songwrite and sing. I'm a more exceptional songwriter than I feel a singer. And I feel like my voice is not made for certain genres. It's made for, very structured ones like, uh, you know, gospel. It's structured for jazz. It's more structured for show tunes like Broadway. But I don't think I was built to be like R&B pop or anything like that. So I'm very aware that I have a unique tone, a unique range, and a unique voice. Um, but when I realized that singing wasn't the way that God wanted me to go, I was kind of confused, so I just took a break. But in that break, my very, 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 very best friend Melina kept saying, your voice can it still means something," but she left in the context of singing. And one day we were having a conversation and potentially trying to think on like doing a project or something YouTube like, and she was like, you would eat as like a reality star or like a podcaster. And I was just like, I think not. That's how my brain usually works. It's like I think not. I've often also struggled with the fact I don't feel comfortable by myself on camera. I just don't. So even what you guys are viewing now, trust me, I'm very uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable, but I do it anyways. Um, so, she kept saying that and I kept thinking, all right, well maybe I'll explore it. Life started life and I didn't even think about the idea no more until last year. And let me tell you, here's how it happened. My brother Dion was offered to do a podcast, and he called on me and my sister in Christ, my sister to the end of this star, and we were down, we were game, and we were game to do it, but he was taking on too many tasks, and he was like, "Oh well, you guys could just take over." I was like, "For all of that, why don't we just have our own podcast?" And it struck an idea with Star, and she was like, "Let's do something." So now we're trying to structure doing a podcast, right? And as a structure, and we had filmed our first episode, we did photo shoots, the whole works, even a promo, and I ended up having to take all of that down because a couple of uh things were happening in both mine and her lives, and I had a very strong intuition and discernment that God was like, no, that ain't it. So I did tell her like I don't eventually we'll revisit the idea. Um so then I was like, if he didn't want me to do it with her, maybe I'll just have get another co-host. And at the time it wasn't even called the Legendary Mess. It was literally called Corrupted Gospel. And it was supposed to be me and her, and it was supposed to be similar to this. Um, it wasn't So at that point, I was like, all right, God, I don't think God wants me to maneuver that way. But I knew still he wanted me to use my voice. So I then decide, like, okay, why don't I do it with another person? Um, I wanted to do it with my brother Dion, but he was just taking on so much stuff. I was like, I'm not about to do that. So I asked my daughter Azaria. She was game, and the thing with that was we had filmed episodes. Like we had about 8 episodes filmed. And at some point I think I'll probably use that as a filler episode, or maybe like the end of the end of the season kind of thing. So y'all could see like how it went from corrupted gospel to a legendary mess with two co-hosts to now just me. Um we had all of this like planned out, intros, all of that. And what happened was I had a very, again, my intuition and discernment kicked in, and I realized something wasn't right. And in the space of realizing something wasn't right, my daughter, I had to have this very uncomfortable conversation, which I'm not a stranger to, but I had to have an uncomfortable conversation with her. And I was like, why didn't you just speak up? Like, I wouldn't have got mad. I'm more prone to getting mad if we dragged it out and we did all this work and this wasn't something that you felt up to doing or comfortable doing. Your comfort comes first. After that got sorted out, I was kind of like, what do I do? Like, God, I don't know. I'm about to just say scrap it and just leave it as where it's at. At that point, God very God was already kind of dropping hints about going on a fast. Now, let me tell y'all how this planned out. My church, shout out to Zion and Pastor Al, Pastor Lisa, and Pastor Justin, and Pastor Johnny and his absolutely lovely wife Jenny. Um, we went on a 3-day Esther fast in November, right at the beginning, and I was like, all right, God, I'm gonna do it because now I have a community and I feel supported and it's more explained. I have guidelines. I know what I can't do, what I'm not supposed to do, how to combat the hunger and learn how you sustain. So day one of Esther Fest, I'm like, all right, cool, we got this. You know, I wasn't doing so bad. It was day two that got me. Day two had me in a chokehold. And I'm going to explain one of the reasons it had me in a chokehold is because it reignited the space that I had fought so hard um, to not ever like revisit, which was my eating disorder. My body, because it hadn't been in that space anymore, went into total shock. So I was going through it like really, really bad. The second day I was in the chokehold and I was struggling. I'm not even gonna sit up here and tell y'all, oh, I made it look super deep, easy breezy. No, my body went into shock. It was almost like I re-triggered my entire body. So I had to go through for like a week or two, like slow eating. Because my body went to extreme shock because of the fact that I used to have a severe eating disorder. Um, so day two, I'm in a chokehold. I'll never forget it. 12:30, 12:43 in the morning, I heard God say, "Get up and walk." I am struggling with hunger. I'm struggling with weakness, and I'm like, "You want me to get up and walk? What is happening, Father? Am I going to be okay?" It was 12:43 in the morning, and he said, "Get up and walk." He said it to me 3 times. That third time, I was like, "I'm putting on my Crocs." I put on my Crocs. It wasn't cold out. It wasn't like super cold or anything like that. It was very comfortable. I always find that fall and spring weather is super comfortable for me, especially because I battle with severe anemia. So I now I'm on this walk at 12:43, 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm walking. I walked for literally like an hour and a half. As I'm walking, and I'm playing my music because when I take walks, if I'm not on a prayer walk and I'm having a conversation with God, I'm definitely gonna have music in my ear. And I had to be very disciplined with the music that I was listening to. It had to be it had to be gospel or Christian music. It couldn't be anything outside of that. So Um, this is something when you learn on fasting, right? That you have not a theme, but what you want to talk to God about and talk with God and have him work with you on. And um you have to sustain the ways that he sustains you is you have to be in your word. You have to you, you have to be in your word. You have to soften. You're consecrating yourself in front of God pretty much. But to pass those spaces where you're struggling, you're going to be in your word. You're going to be praying fervently. You're going to be listening to music that glorifies God and his goodness and his kingdom. You're going to surround yourself with the community. So I'm in here. I got my music on. I was listening to I Choose Myself, Choosing Myself by Naomi Rain. As I'm walking at literally like 1:30 in the morning, I'm listening to this song and I hear God ever so clearly say, the podcast journey has to be just you. And in that moment, I was super apprehensive because I'm like, what? Like, you don't want me to have a co-host? Like, why? And he was like, your voice and your and all that you've been through and things that you've already kind of conquered and that I've guided you and delivered you from could help somebody else. He was very strategic because I asked it 3 or 4 times and he kept making sure I heard him as clear as possible. So at that point, I was like, all right, this is the first weekend of November. Now, if you guys, what you guys will learn is November is my birthday month. So it's my birthday month. So the very beginning of November, I was like, all right, heard you. I got home. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I started praying. I was praying over not just myself. I have a habit of praying more for everybody else than myself. So I was praying over my kids. I was praying over my mother. I'm praying over my family. Then I said, God, if this is exactly what you want me to do, please make it clear. Bulldoze it so I have no choice but to acknowledge it. That was day 2. I go to sleep, it's like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Now, the next day, which is day 3, we were going to break the fast as a church, you know, when we did night service. So that third day, my body was in even worse shock than it had already been. I was throwing up the line in my throat. I was throwing up the line in my stomach. And still, me being me, I'm like, I'm not willing to break this fast. I'm going to do it. I've been through worse. And I'm hearing God giving me certain instructions, things that he's talking to me. Um, Even as I'm in the Bible reading and searching and just consecrating and just taking that time to really walk in with him, he's talking to me and he's like, I need you to do this podcast by yourself, no co-host. And I was just like, why? God, I know you love me, but why you want me to do it by myself? And he literally said, have faith. Yeah, that was what it was. To just have faith. And I said, all right, fine. You telling me, and I'm gonna move in obedience. And so we go to church, and in the moment, I'm still feeling very apprehensive, and I'm starting to feel the doubt and stuff sink in. Um, Pastor Johnny was pretty much saying he was talking about our calling, what our calling is, what God calls us to do as not just Christians, but as his children and how we serve him. And as he's saying this, it's very evident God is just like, are you paying attention? Because I know what I told you, but let's see if you heard me. I was like, all right, I heard you. I'm gonna stand in that calling because as I'm hearing God through Pastor Johnny, he says you have to have faith that God will do what that he's gonna do. I was like, all right, I got it. So now we break the fast. I'm gonna fast forward to like a few weeks. It's probably right before my birthday. And I'm looking over old footage and stuff. So what Star and I had created was corrupted gospel. And it was similar to this, but just more, I don't want to say churchy or preachy based. It was just more Christian based. Very heavy. It was very much more. We didn't actually kind of interfuse a certain amount of like our experiences and stuff. Um, and it was more of like the questions that we had and our walk. So it wasn't exactly this. And then I was looking at the footage with me and my daughter, and I was just like, "Are you sure, God? Like, are you sure?" So, in the manner that I'm like, "Are you sure?" I picked up my phone, to kind of like just disconnect from looking at the footage. I needed a minute to just kind of regather, and I had an alert from Instagram from one of like, my favorite, you know, podcasting people. The Christian Bay, I absolutely love her. If you guys have yet to get into another great podcast and you need a little more that Christian base, she is one that I would recommend. Um and she was talking, she was doing the series of your kingdom spouses and preparing for marriage. And I was like, all right, I don't think I need to know about that. Yeah, I don't think that was what you wanted me to look at. That's what I'm thinking in my head to God. When I scrolled, another podcast that I follow came up, and I was like, all right, okay. I scrolled again, another podcast. I was like, all right, God, you made it clear. I heard you. I'm going to move in obedience. I'm not going to stall. But then I had to be honest in that space where I was like, God, I am scared because I don't like being on camera. I'm very uncomfortable on camera. I don't think I'm entertaining enough. I don't think I could sustain an audience. And again, I'm hearing just have faith. So that night I was reading the Bible, and that's when I stumbled across have faith of a mustard seed. And I was like, all right, I have to do it. I just have to. So now it's, we go to December, and I had, every year I give myself a birthday gift because why not? I love me. God loves me, but I love me too. So I'm gonna give myself a birthday gift. So I get myself a birthday gift, right? And it happened to be to the Red and Green Christmas tour, which was Jonathan McReynolds. And let me tell y'all something. If God isn't hilarious in more ways than one, I divinely orchestrated. So I had bought meet and greet tickets. I had to be there at a certain time. Now I left on time. Let me tell you, I got stuck in traffic. First of all, not only did I get stuck in traffic, I had a pair of heels with me because I was in a dress. Um, and it was 12, it was, let me tell you something, it was super duper cold. So I had slides on with these thick socks, ankle socks at that, and my kneecaps was out. And the dress that I wore, because I love red, my favorite color is, I only have two. It's red and it's my favorite two colors are red and pink. Um, I'm wearing this red dress, and it was picked out by none other than my very, very great and amazing best friend, right hand woman, Nene. That's not her name, that's her nickname, by the way. Um, because I ain't giving y'all her government. That would be absolutely ridiculous to do that and invade her privacy. But Nene had picked the dress out when I was looking on Shein. And it was very interesting because I said I wanted to get a dress similar to that. And it was it was on my vision and prayer board for fashion. I'm very strategic. First, let me just make this clear. I'm super strategic about my vision and prayer boards. I have it for each season and for different categories. If that makes me chaotic and a little OCD, you know, crazed, so be it. But I'm very detailed, and so far, my details have always like came to fruition. It's come to pass. So I had something similar to that on my vision and prayer board of like up in my fashion a little more. And it was crazy because I passed that dress and she was like, nope, that's the one. You're gonna wear it. So I bought it. I'm a hot mess. I bought it. I bought her a dress. That was, I think, was so dope. I can't wait for her to wear soon when we go out. Whenever we do go out, probably go out to dinner or something, because I don't do the club no more. I tried it a few times. It's not my thing. But you know, sh- we we she picks out this dress, and I'm like, all right, fine. Hopefully it's not that cold. The day of the actual concert, it's 12 degrees out. 12 flipping degrees out. 12 whole degrees. 2 degrees out. Okay. 12. At that point, I'm like, God, you could, all right. Okay. Getting there, I was stuck in traffic to the point I had to, I was like, God, can you make a way out of no way? And he did it. So when I say God has always had detail over my life, I really truly mean that he's literally made a way out of no way, and there's no other way that I can explain it. So I was like, I'm stuck in traffic, I'm gonna be late. Let me tell you something, God made a way out of no way. Kid you not. I ended up making the meet and greet. I had like a very great experience. Shout out to Jonathan McReynolds for making that such a pleasant experience. And for the record, I think Wikipedia needs to change that man's height because he is not no 5'9". That man is tall, and I was in 5-inch stilettos and still had to kind of, but I'm not that tall neither. Like, I'm honest, I'm not that tall. So sometimes I have really nice legs, so I like to put on heels to accentuate my legs. And that man is tall. Please fix the height, Wikipedia, please. Um, but it was such a pleasant experience. And then Nene came, and we enjoyed that concert so much. It was her first gospel concert, because that is my best friend and I know her well. Sometimes without so many words, I'm gonna just show up and do what I would do, what God just tells me to do. And he was like, I need you to take her to that concert. So I took her. Come on, we're outside. That's what it was. And we had such a great time at that concert. It was getting home that became an extra legendary mess because my phone died. I had the wrong charger, so I couldn't charge my phone. I had no access to my to money, couldn't do nothing. So we went again. God made a way out of no way. And she said, I'll never forget on the trip home, she was like, yo, not gonna lie to you. She said, let me tell you something. This would go great for your podcast. I just looked at, I didn't have it in me because I was tired and I was cold, and me being a person who battles severe anemia, I was over it. I just looked at it like, this is what you think of? All right, cool. So, um, in the midst of her saying that, I went back to talking. I went back to talking about what we were originally talking about, which is the experience of the meet and greet and the photos. Um, and that following day, I was like, maybe she might be onto something because there's no way I can explain how I managed to get home safely. I managed to not miss meet and greet, even by missing it, even by me getting there late. So all these occurrences that people said that I lived these 10,000 lives, and sometimes that I'm lucky. I'm not lucky. First of all, let me make this clear. I'm quote Jonathan McReynolds. I'm not lucky. I'm very loved and I'm very blessed and highly favored because God really has his hand over me. Sometimes I'm still in disbelief at how he operates with me. I'm in current disbelief still. I'm getting over it. I'm not getting over it. Let me stop lying. I want to get over it, but I'm not. God has kept me in awe these last few weeks, and I'm super thankful and I'm so grateful. I feel more blessed than I really feel I should be. So yes, cousins, God made a way out of no way, and he literally was like, I'm bulldozing what you can use as a vessel because that is something that I prayed over. I pray that I can always be a vessel to bring people, you know, to God or closer to him or encourage. And I also said I wanted since I was a child, I also wanted to be a vessel to help people, whether it's showing up or making sure they felt seen or or just with words or using my words or using my actions, right? So he was literally answering prayers back to back to back, and I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna move in obedience still, but I need help. So I was struggling with the fact that I felt like I couldn't sustain an audience. I was struggling with the fact that I didn't feel like I had anything that would be really of value to say. I struggled with the fact that I'm super awkward on camera. I'm very awkward on camera. I'm very awkward having to, I feel awkward just having to just talk in a camera. I'm awkward even taking pictures. And a lot of people would be like, but you look so natural. I am awkward and uncomfortable and often very much like I would rather be much more behind the camera. So when God told me I need to do this journey alone, let me tell y'all something that terrified the mess out of me. I'm not going to sit up here and lie to y'all. It terrified me. So this is 2 weeks before Christmas. I kid y'all not. That concert was December 12th. So that was 2 weeks before Christmas. That following week, I'm now starting to look up ideas, but I felt like I didn't have any. And now Christmas rolls around, and what is happening? There's a ham being made. What did I immediately think of? The vegan ham story. And I was like, Mom, do you remember the time I ate the whole ham? And that's when my kids actually had heard that story. And they were like, you did what we did? I said, yeah, I was the originator. Because my kids listen, my kids also fell into that space of eating a whole ham. That'll be another story. That'll be like a part two, maybe. But the kids' version. So we as we're talking about, I said, maybe I can build off of that. And I had asked my mom permission. I was like, is it okay if I use this for the podcast? You know, telling the story about the ham and the reaction and stuff. But she was like, yeah, sure. Now I didn't think she was gonna say yes. I was actually more terrified of her finding that that was a good idea. And what did she do? She found that was a good idea. So um that's when I really started to figure out ideas, and I was praying about them, and God just was gently leading me with different ideas and inspiration, and I was drawing them from like practically everywhere, from conversations, things like that, the same way that I kind of would draw inspiration from songwriting, any aspect that like the littlest thing inspires me. So when I noticed that God was utilizing me in that sense, I was like, okay, he definitely wants me to do this podcast. So I started filming. So when it came down to filming, there was a problem. The space that I was in didn't work. So I had to film in the basement. So those first episodes that I'm in the basement is because the space where I was at didn't really, it wasn't as conducive to podcasting and kind of having that. It was just a lot of movement and things of that nature. So I was like, God, I don't know how this is gonna work, and God was just like, just do it in the basement, and then I'll lead you the rest of the way. Just have faith. This was the whole thing. Just have faith. Before I filmed that first episode, I was praying, and I just was like, God, I need to know that you have me, and I felt. I promise y'all, I felt the Holy Spirit just kind of gently hug me, and I was like, all right, I can do it. When I filmed that episode and the first three episodes, I was so uncomfortable. I felt super awkward. I hated it. Um, and I was like, I feel like maybe this isn't it. Like, I don't know. God was just like, I need you to take the chance. I need you to have faith. So I did, in obedience. I went ahead and I had faith. And I wasn't expecting anything out of it. And I'm kind of blessed, like, it's slowly building. So how we got to this episode, one, I was online looking for something different that wasn't like trauma or anything like that. I needed something that was a little more lighthearted. And a couple of friends of mine had asked, well, what made me name it a legendary mess and what made me build off of it? And I was just like, I'm a legendary mess. I'm a hot mess, really, but you know, I like the legendary aspect because I want to be able to do something that could break a family generational curse. And I've often always struggled with the fact that I was the black sheep of my family and still is. But I remember um I was on YouTube one night real late. I can't remember who it was, but they were just like, a lot of us who are the black sheep are usually considered the chosen ones to bear a certain weight that others may not be able to bear in the family. And it stuck with me. And I was just like, all right, I want it to be legendary. So that's where it came from too. I also have a candle company called Legendary LLC. But the legendary mess came from that aspect of knowing like I am a hot mess, but I don't want to name the podcast that. So God allowed me to use my candle company name and fuse it to make this podcast. Eventually, I'll probably put that as merch and a couple of other things. Baby steps, children. So as that's occurring, those first episodes up until that recent episode, I was in my basement and there was a lot of resistance, like even with uploading. So last week when I did that episode, I felt like I was in a very supernatural favor space because um I was already dealing with a couple of trials where I knew for a fact it was testing my faith, and I learned this is how that I was in alignment. Yes, I searched up the Bible. I will, I ain't gonna say I'm a biblielect, but boy oh boy, all of my children's name came out of the Bible. And a lot of people think I just picked it out of a hat. No, like all of my children's name came out of that holy book, okay? Azariah, Azariah, just without an H. Like, let's be serious. I was reading the Bible. I had prayed before that episode. I was praying fervently because my faith was already kind of in a space that was being shaky with a lot of the trials that I was having, but I was just like, I have to rely on God. I don't have no other choice. God just walked me through it. That's where I was at. That whole entire day, I was like, God, I need you to walk me through this. God, I need you to barter my tongue. God, I need you to sit with me on this. I need you to hold my hand with this. But I'm naturally already kind of like that too. But I was extra that day. And when I had filmed that episode, it was amazing that it went so smooth. It went smooth down to the upload. In the midst of me uploading that episode, I experienced something that I can say is only God's favor and hand on me. And it resulted in a couple of things, including me getting this house. Who would have thought? So I was then like, what does that mean? I was in the Bible, I was on the internet, I was back. I'm a nerd. If y'all haven't noticed, I'm a nerd. So if I don't have peace with something that's irritating my brain through the Bible and the internet, I'm not gonna be at peace. I'm gonna keep searching until I get it, or until God tell me to sit that one out. But I had experienced supernatural favor, and God, I heard God just be like, keep going. And I was like, all right, so I must be in the right space. And I was like, wow, like who would have thought if I would have kept allowing my doubt, my fear, my insecurity, my awkwardness to get in the way, that I would have gotten further than what I thought. Because then I was starting to realize like people were starting to notice it online, and um the people were starting to see clips or the episodes online and on Spotify, and then I was being asked like, hey, can you touch this topic, can you talk about this? And I found some people releasing, and I was like, God, you really said that my voice could is for use of something bigger than just singing. And he was showing me that. He was showing out tremendously. So yeah, that's how and to be honest, when Star and I did our first episode of Corrupted Gospel, it was originally it was originally called The Redirection of a Misdirection. And when it came to this episode, instead of using that title, I was like, the messy creative, the messy creation, the messy creative. And how this turned in, how it went from one thing to this. So honestly, guys, I've when I say God, there's no other way to explain, but God really like walked with me on this, and I'm incredibly thankful. I am. I'm incredibly thankful. I, I'm I'm still in disbelief. Um, and I'm so grateful. Like even over the weekend, hanging out with my brother Marley Storm. I love you. I appreciate you, bro. And my mom Liz, and like my brother and I said, we've lived like 10 billion lives in this short span of life that we have. And it's crazy that we've lived so many lives, and people can draw wisdom from us, even if despite our ages. And that's when it clicked to me. I said, this is why God has me using my voice, because he's literally, I went through all these different things. And when I say there's no other way I could have came out of it but God, there's no other way I could have came out of it. Like, I know how worse I could have turned out. And he's really had his hand in his favor over me. And I'm super duper blessed. And I'm so grateful that I locked in, and I stay locked in with him. And even though I wander off the porch, well, I had wandered off the porch a lot of times, which, is what happens when it's what happened. When you get on your walk with God, sometimes you wander off the porch, which is called, you sometimes explore the world and then you come back and he gotta call you back. You know, leave the 99 for the one. If y'all don't know what that is, get in y'all word, please. Well, at least listen to Chandler Moore's O Mema, which is an amazing song. And that also was one of the very songs that sustained the mess out of me during that Esther fast. So I can even give y'all the playlist if y'all want, if that's something to be interested in. But yeah, I feel super blessed, and I'm so incredibly grateful, and I'm always in awe of God, because he's always up in the ante with me. And that's how my creative mess of multiple misdirections became this, on solid ground and just the act of faith. And I'm grateful. I'm so grateful. I don't have no other words but thank you, God, because I wouldn't have thought this was how I use my voice. It went from me thinking I should have just been writing songs and singing, to me being in front of a camera that I'm very awkward with, to using my voice with every different experience that I've faced in life. I'm so grateful for that. I am. And here's my takeaway that I hope that you guys get from today's episode. Do it scared, do it uncomfortable. All you need is faith of a mustard seed and childlike faith, and you will go further than you ever thought you could. Let God lead. Don't try to do it yourself. Let him lead. And give yourself grace if you don't you have to give yourself grace. Like, there's no other way around that. You have to give yourself grace, because if you don't, you will just create chaos that you don't need. Give yourself grace, because we as humans, I've learned that we as humans, we don't embrace that we're human. We always want to put a title on being like Superman or Superwoman, which I'm also guilty of. Um, there's this thing where we have, because we let society tell us that, but in all reality, when you have God leading, you will be okay. You might take a couple of rock, you might have to, wade in the water here and there or whatever, but when he's leading, trust me, you it's it's so much better than your way. And I wouldn't have thought this. I honestly wouldn't have thought this, but I'm so grateful, and I I find a different level of joy in this that I didn't think I was gonna find. So yeah, that's the takeaways with this episode. And with that, you know what time it is. It's time to sign off, which is like, comment, share, subscribe. Find me on Spotify, Legendary Mess, YouTube, A Legendary Mess, IG, A Legendary Mess, as well as I am Martine. You can find me on TikTok, because I be on there doing food series and, promoing. And find me on Facebook. I don't like Facebook. I'm learning though. It's getting there. Progress, children. As Rain M. And yeah, please give yourselves grace. Please. The one thing that I stand on is give yourselves grace, because we can't do what God does. We're humans, and it's not our job to do that. And I love you, cousins, but God loves you so much more. He loves you way more than me. And please let him lead. Don't try to do his job. You're just gonna block your blessings and get in the way. You'll be in your own way. Get out of your own way. I just heard Uncle Brian. Brian Courtney Wilson. Everybody, uncles, cousins, and family to me, except certain people. Except certain people. I'm not going to name them because then people might be like, why? I don't feel like I have to explain that just yet. I'm not ready. But Brian Courtney Wilson, that's my uncle's. Not for real, but that my uncle. That's the uncle. He gonna hit you with some wisdom, and I just heard his lyrics of "Get Out of My Way" from the song "Still." So I'm gonna end it on that note, y'all. Favor, peace, and blessings over the rest of your week and your days. Again, I love you, but God loves you more. Please give yourselves grace. And I'm Ray Martine, and this is a Legendary Mess. See y'all next week.